Hello, everyone. We are live. So exciting. First things first, let me know if you can hear me, see me. If everything's working okay, just type it in the chat like we can see you or you're there or whatever, just so I know that you know what I'm saying and everything, and I'm just talking into nothing. And also, if you do see me looking over here to the side, I've got a monitor over here with the chat on it, so I can see the chat and everything. So if you see me looking over there, then that's why. So I'm not ignoring you, I promise. Okay, you guys can see me. Great, perfect. Okay, so a little bit of housekeeping. I have some notes here just so I don't miss anything. If you are new to my YouTube channel, welcome. I hang out here a lot, so I'm really happy to have you here. Also, if you have questions that you want me to answer in the broadcast, you can just go ahead and start putting those in the chat right now. And that way they'll be there when we get to that part where we're doing Q&A and all that stuff. You already have it typed in and everything. Also, side note, Jason, my husband, is in the room over here for tech support. And also in case, the cats try to knock down the door or get in or something like that, or there's some sort of emergency. So he is here helping me out. Also, if you have any friends who you think would want to hang out with us here, chit chat, even if they're not signed up for the challenge, you can go ahead and send the link to them, invite them. They can watch on their phones too. So that's totally cool if you want to invite someone else to come hang out with us here tonight. And then also just a quick disclaimer, this video is intended for general information purposes only. It's not to be used as a replacement for medical advice from a licensed health professional, and it shouldn't be used to diagnose, treat, or cure any sort of condition. Okay, so now that we have got that out of the way, and I can see you guys are typing in the chat, which is super cool. I'm really happy to have all of you guys here. So that's fun. And just a quick overview why we're here. So if you've signed up for the challenge, the whole idea behind this thing is that we want to be eating more real foods and less of the processed stuff. But we're not all in the same place with that because we're all working on it. We're at different stages. We have different life stuff going on, all that kind of stuff. So the point of this challenge is that you can set a goal for yourself that's tailored to you and specific to you and everything else you have going on, but that we can still all do it together and help each other and support each other and, have that community around it to help us reach our goals and really be accountable to each other, which I think is pretty fun. I thought that we could start off by me sharing my goal to let you guys know what I am working on if you're interested in that. And I actually already shared it on Instagram. So if you're following me on Instagram, then you already saw it there. And if you're not following me on Instagram, the link for that is in the description too. If you want to follow me over there, it's a great place where I'm going to be communicating a lot about the challenge there. I'm giving you ideas and encouragement and all that kind of stuff. So that is a great place to be if you're not there already. So my big goal that I want to work on is that I want to try some new recipes because I'm definitely in, kind of my routine with cooking and everything, as happens, and it's kind of nice because you don't have to think about it too much, but I do like to try new stuff every once in a while to get new inspiration and also maybe to find new recipes that are going to go in my everyday rotation. So for my goal, I am going to be trying 2 new recipes every single week. And I thought about doing just one, but I decided that 2 would be better because 1 seemed a little bit too easy. And I definitely want it to be challenging, but still doable if I am focusing on it. So that is my goal. And to prep for my goal, what I've been doing is going through some of my cookbooks, especially the ones that I've kind of been neglecting. So, I can get some recipes already flagged. So I'll just have that to go to. And also going through Pinterest and looking at recipes I've already pinned and checking all that stuff out, because I definitely have stuff that I might have pinned, but I forgot about or never got around to making. So that's what I'm doing. And the other thing with my goal, and something that you should be thinking about with your goal, is what kind of barriers are going to get in the way for you, because we all have barriers, either whether it's a situation that could happen, a circumstance, a person, whatever, it's going to be a little different for all of us. So my big barrier to reaching my goal is going to be the fact that, sometimes life just happens. Either you end up not eating at home when you thought you were going to be, or you end up having leftovers one night, stuff like that, and stuff gets pushed off the meal plan. But if that happens, then my new recipes are going to get pushed off into the next week. So to prevent that, I'm going to plan to have my new recipes at the beginning of the week. So even if something happens and they get pushed over, it won't push them off the week, and I'll still make sure that I get those things made. So that is what I'm going to be working on. Now we can get into a little bit of Q&A kind of stuff. I'm going to look over here at your questions and see what you are saying. Okay, so first thing, love the kale sweatshirt. Thanks, Jessica. Yeah, I got this at Target. I don't know if you'll still be able to find it because Target does tend to like blow through their stuff kind of quickly, but I got it there. I also know that Suburban Riot is the brand that came out with like the original version of this that Beyonce had or whatever, and it got really popular. So you could check out their website, but it is obviously a little pricier than the Target version. So that's just something to know. Okay, so the next thing, and if you have questions, make sure to put them in the chat. Bad eating habits is the main problem. I eat way too much of the wrong stuff. Okay, so the thing with this whole challenge is it's perfect for you because it's going to help you change your habits. So if you're in a place where you feel like your habits are where you're eating a lot of stuff that isn't in line with where you would want to be, and I wouldn't say it's the wrong stuff, it's just not where you want to be, because, you know, we're all different. But the big thing with that is to make sure you're taking it a chunk at a time and not getting too in over your head. And if you have more specifics that you want to put in the chat to add on to this, feel free to do that. But, you know, you want to make sure you're not making your goal too big because it can be really tempting to want to do all of this stuff and change everything at once. But the problem is when you do that, a lot of times, most of the time, it doesn't end up sticking just because it's so many balls in the air. You've got so many things that you're juggling. And then when one thing comes in, either, you know, some sort of life event or stress, or you get a new job or your schedule changes or whatever, then all that stuff comes crumbling down because it's just too much to keep track of all that stuff you're trying to do. So when you can do one thing, it's much more manageable to focus on. And it might not be as exciting as changing everything at once, but it's more sustainable because you can create something that's going to stick. You can build that new habit that becomes a part of your routine so you don't have to think about it all the time. And then you can move on to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing, and kind of build that healthy lifestyle one step at a time. And that's how you do it in a way where it can actually last and not just be something that goes on for a week or a month or until something comes in and distracts you. You want something that's really going to stick. Okay, the next thing, would love to see healthy recipes for those of us who like sweets but want real good taste. Okay, I'm with you for the sweet eaters out there because I have a sweet tooth myself. The first thing I would say is definitely kind of take it in steps. So the first thing would be fruit, okay? That's, you know, the sweet thing that's, you know, the, I guess, most real food because it is real food. But, you know, if you don't feel like fruit is a real dessert, then the next step would be trying to make real food versions of your favorite things. You can totally have sweet things, but just making it a better version so that you're still getting that craving satisfied and enjoying that, because that should be a part of your food, is enjoying it. And there's nothing wrong with having sweets every once in a while, but if you want something that you don't feel like really fits with what your goals are, then you can try that too. And on my Pinterest, I do have a desserts page which has healthier desserts. So I mean, there's still dessert. Some of them do use like white sugar and stuff, some of them don't, but it's at least a better option than maybe something else that you can do. And someone just said I froze on there, so let me know for the rest of you if it's going okay or if you're having any trouble with the feed coming in. The other thing with sweets is I think it's much better to have a little bit of the real thing than a lot of something that's fake. Like there's the like joke about, well, I wanted a Snickers bar, so I decided that I was gonna eat an apple, and then I ate a banana, and then I ate an orange, and then I had a piece of toast, and then I just ate a Snickers bar. Okay, so you know, part of it is realizing that you can't have those things every once in a while, and if it's something that you really want, then that's totally fine to have. It's just about figuring out the way that you're gonna fit it into your lifestyle. Okay, let's see. Love to hear goal suggestions. I had a few in mind, but I'm not sure what is realistic in this time frame. Okay, so goal suggestions. I think a good way to look at it is to either focus on a specific food or maybe a food group, or a meal. Those are kind of the two most obvious ways. So it could either be adding in more of a certain food or taking out a certain food, or you could say, I'm just going to focus on breakfast. I want to get my breakfast really solid, nailed down, and work there and move on. Excuse me, I'm burping. So that's a way that you can break it up. So for example, if you are someone who goes out to fast food for lunch every day, then you might want to reduce that and pack some lunches from home. So you can make a goal like, I'm going to pack a lunch 3 days a week, because if you're doing it every day, then to say you're never going to eat out for lunch, that's probably not going to happen. And realistically, no one never eats out for lunch, right? So if you can make it like 3 times a week or 2 times a week or 4 times a week, depending on how you're feeling, would be, you know, the right amount of challenge for you. That's kind of a good place to go. So either food type or category, or improving a specific meal. And if you have other questions about that, let me know. Okay, next one. What is pastured meat exactly? The difference between just regular meat from the store. Okay, pastured meat just refers to meat that is raised on pasture. So for animals to be healthy, you know, they need to live a certain way. And a lot of the times the meat, well, most of the time the meat that you get in the store is from like a factory farming setting. They're not outside living in their natural environment. And a lot of times they're not eating the diet that is biologically healthy for them. So pastured meat refers to cows that just eat grass, because cows are herbivores. All they're supposed to be eating is vegetation. They shouldn't be eating other things. So that's for beef. And then for things like pork and chicken, you want them to be raised on pasture, but they're omnivores like us. So they can eat other things. You know, chickens can go out and get like worms and bugs, and they might have some corn or grain or something like that. So that's the difference. And the reason it's important is because the nutritional quality of the meat is different and much healthier that way. And then also, as far as the way the animals are treated, that's much better as well. And if you can find a local farm that does it that you can talk to, then that's really great, because then you're also supporting someone in your community. And I definitely think going for pastured meat, making that switch, is a good thing to do, even if it means that maybe you eat a little less meat since it's more expensive a lot of times. I think that's a good thing to do, because it's going to be so much healthier for you, and it's also going to be a lot better for the animals. And if you need help finding that, there are some resources listed in the guide as far as websites and stuff where you can find farms and stuff that are local to you. And I'm going to get a drink of water real quick. Okay. All right, next thing. Question. I like to replace things that I already eat. This is not that type of thing. Seems to stick better. I'm sorry, I'm not understanding. I like to replace things that I already eat. Like an eat this, not that type of thing. Seems to stick better than changing everything. Totally agree. If you can make little changes that actually last, that's what's going to make the big difference. Which one? I have my off-camera man giving me instructions.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, that's one I just answered. Okay, we're going to keep going down. Salty snacks. Good alternatives for salty snacks. Okay, so this is a really hard one for a lot of people, just because snacking in general, we have a whole category of snack foods, and they're generally not real food. So like chips and crackers and things like that. So if you like salty snacks, I would say nuts are a good thing. If you get salted nuts, I mean, I think that's much better than eating a bag of potato chips. So that can be a good thing. And it also gives that crunch that a lot of people like out of the saltier snacks. I also really like guacamole. Delicious. Some people like to dip like veggies in there. You could also get just like a really good quality corn chip. It's, you know, not perfect, but we're not going for perfect here. And you can find ones that have a lot better ingredients if you look in the store. Other salty snacks. See, this one is not one I personally struggle with because I'm much more of a sweets person. So I don't do a lot of this myself. Another thing could be peanut butter. If you like peanut butter, even if it's not salted, it kind of has that savoriness and the fat and stuff. So that could be a good one either, you know, on celery or banana or apple or a piece of toast or something like that. So those are good salty snack options. Hummus is good too if you kind of like that savory thing. That can be good. And that can also help you get more veggies, which is a good thing. Okay, so Catherine says, one of my goals for February is to eat mainly vegetarian with a few servings of seafood throughout the week. How do you feel about tofu products and fake meat products? Great question. Okay, so for this one, I think the big thing is just to make sure you're sticking to the kind of stuff that's outlined in the guide as far as what is real food, okay? Because, you know, we don't want to be swapping out meat for something that's like really processed. So I would say a lot of the fake meat products, most of them are probably going to be on the highly processed side. So I would not go for those most of the time, but tofu is okay. I would say you don't want to eat large quantities like of any one thing. You don't want to get stuck on one food because we want that variety. And a lot of tofu all the time isn't a good idea just because you're eating a lot of one thing. So I wouldn't say like having a slab of tofu in place of your meat every night is a good idea. But if you find a stir fry or a soup or something that has tofu in it, I think that's fine to have. The big thing with vegetarian is just making sure that you are trying new stuff, because depending on how you cook, it can be tricky to figure out, like if you're the type of person who has a meat and a starch and a vegetable, trying to figure out that replacement can be tricky. So looking for recipes looking for new recipes can be really helpful, especially like stir fries and casseroles and soups and stews and things like that are more kind of mixed dishes can be good. Pizza is also a good option if you make your own crust and do the sauce and everything. That's a good one that's really easy to do vegetarian. Then you can have like a salad or roasted veggies or something on the side to balance out your plate. Okay. Let's see. Any suggestions for what to eat for special occasions? So like the Super Bowl. Want to stick with the challenge. Okay, so it obviously depends on what your goal is and what you're trying to work on. But the good news is that almost anything that you like to eat that's not like something really highly processed, like I don't know, chicken wing Dorito or something like that. Pretty much everything can be made in a real food version. And a lot of people's favorite foods can totally be made in a real food way. So like with parties, chili is a good thing to have at like a Super Bowl party. And also the thing with this is you can provide some stuff. So if you're not the host, you can still bring stuff if you have a really specific goal in mind and you want to make sure that you're able to stick with it. And then that's a good thing, is to bring something your own. So chili, totally a real food thing. Guacamole, salsa, all of that is good. A veggie tray, that's like, ever since I was a little kid, that was my favorite part of any party, was the veggie tray. And most people like to have that around. Nuts is a good little thing to have. You could also do like roasted chickpeas. That's also a good salty snack, is roasted chickpeas, and you can put all kinds of spices and stuff on there. So you could try that. And also think about your goal, because for pretty much every goal, there should be some wiggle room. So it's usually, unless you're like at a really advanced place and you're just doing some final tweaks, it's probably not a good idea to have a goal that's like all the time, I'm going to do this, because there are chances where you're not going to be able to do that, different circumstances or things happen. So the Super Bowl might be the day where, you know, if you say, I'm going to do this 4 out of 7 days of the week, that might be one of the days where you don't do it. So you can also kind of plan for that and keep that in mind as you're going through, you know, what you need to do to adjust for that. So that's something to think about too. Okay, next question. Will it have any easy recipes? I'm not a good cook. I don't have time or money to purchase for the meal. For instance, I always include tomatoes, onions. If you're talking about the guide, I don't have any specific recipes in the guide, but I do share a few resources I really like. One of those is my own Pinterest page, which the link will be in the description of this video. You should be able to go there now. I have a lot of boards over there with real food recipes. I've looked at them, I've gone through the ingredients and checked them out myself, and I have them divided by breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I have them divided by season. I have, you know, a separate slow cooker board. I have them divided by type of food, so like starches, vegetables, that kind of thing. So if you go over there, you should be able to find a lot of recipes, and you know, there's different levels as far as how advanced they are, how basic too. So there are some options for you over there. And the thing is, with real food, it really doesn't have to be complicated. Most of the time, I'm not cooking my meals from day to day from a recipe. It can be really easy. One thing I do all the time is eggs for dinner with some sort of green or salad, collard greens, kale, something like that, and then some potatoes. And it's really easy, it's quick, it's simple, nothing crazy. So it doesn't have to be anything super advanced or anything like that. You know, it just depends on what your preferences are and the things you like to make. And you can totally do it on a budget. And the other thing is like, it probably might even end up saving you money, because if you're cooking this stuff from scratch and you're, you know, doing more of this real food, you're not paying for all the extra that you pay for all that processing and the packaging and the marketing and all that stuff, or what you're paying to eat out. And if you're not a great cook, maybe that's what your goal should be, is to, you know, something around trying new recipes or developing some new skills or something like that, so that cooking is easier and you have some stuff under your belt that you can work with. So those are some things to think about there. Are pastured meats and grass-fed synonymous, or is it different? I say pastured instead of grass-fed because not all animals eat exclusively grass like cows do, but you know, pigs or chickens don't. So that's why I say pastured, because that kind of encompasses all of those. And the thing with grass-fed to keep an eye out for, as far as packaging and stuff, or even when you're talking to someone who's selling the meat, grass-fed just means that the cow got grass, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they only ate grass, like 100% grass the whole time. So some people will start, all the cows are started on grass, when no matter if they're a factory farm cow, whatever, they start on grass and then they end up being finished on grain at the end. So it's just important to make sure you're paying attention to that it's truly grass-fed if it's beef all the way throughout and not just part of the way. My client for my friend in her health class this semester, she has me on a strict 5-meal-a-day diet, same food every day, already getting bored. Any advice? It's all whole foods and I like it. It's just the same every day. So I don't know, I'm supposed to do it for 8 weeks. The thing about that, I mean, it makes sense that you're getting bored, right? If you're eating the same thing every day. I mean, I don't know the specifics of this, like if this is something she has to do, or if you can like talk to her and make changes. I don't know what the exact situation is there. But I would say if you're already getting bored, definitely talk with her, because if she's doing this for a class and this is something she's supposed to be learning, you know, that's a good thing for her to know and to get feedback on. And I would say that it's definitely, yeah, something to look at, because I mean, if you have to eat the same thing every day, you're going to get bored. So I would talk to her, figure something out, and just let her know that this isn't really working, because that's part of this, right? You want something that you can do forever. You don't want something that's just for right now, because that's no fun and it doesn't help you to actually make good changes that last. Okay, is cheese bad for you? I always hear from friends that it's not good for you. This is a great question. So the thing with cheese is, one, you want to make sure you're getting good quality cheese. Cheese can totally be a part of a healthy diet for sure. You want to make sure, again, since it's an animal product, if you can get cheese that's made from milk that's from grass-fed cows, then that's the best and it's gonna be the most nutritious. And also cheeses that don't have a ton of additives in them, because a lot of the cheeses out there that you might find in your grocery store can be highly processed and have other things besides like milk and maybe like some sort of acid or whatever other ingredients are in the cheese. And the other thing with cheese is a lot of times it gets the rap of being bad for you, but the problem isn't the cheese, it's just how much people eat of it. So again, this goes back to balancing our foods. We don't want to have a ton of one food or a ton of this food. We want to have that balance. So with cheese, people tend to eat a lot of it. So a serving of cheese is, you know, a small amount, but people will just like eat a whole block of cheese with some crackers, come home from work or school, get the cheese out, get the crackers, and you don't realize it, but you're eating a lot at one time. So that's the thing, is making sure that, you know, you're not going too crazy with it. But I think cheese can be great. It can add a lot of flavor to foods if you like it. And, you know, there's obviously some nutrition there from the milk. So cheese is fine. You just want to make sure you're getting a good one and you're not going overboard with it and eating a lot of it, because then you're going to miss out on that balance there. So that's the thing to think about with the cheese. Okay, we got another question about desserts. I did talk about that earlier, but if you go look on my Pinterest, there's a whole board for desserts. And the big thing is one, first start with fruit. And that might be the dietitian answer, but that is my first answer. Another good thing, dates. Dates and figs, dried figs, those are good because they've got that rich sweetness, but they're like a one ingredient thing. So those are good. Dates with peanut butter inside, so delicious, like the perfect snack, so good. So you could do that. And then also just making real food versions of the stuff that you already like. Okay, next one. What is your idea of the optimal diet for health? How do you feel about paleo versus vegan? Well, my thing is start with real food, because no matter where you look at people all over the world, they're all going to have different diets depending on the climate they live in, you know, what grows there, the cultural practices, all that kind of stuff. So someone who lives in a really cold area is probably going to have more fat and more animal foods because stuff isn't growing all year round. Someone who lives in a tropical area probably is going to have a lot more fruit, maybe a lot more produce. Someone who lives near the ocean, those cultures would traditionally have a lot more seafood, that kind of stuff. So starting with real food, I think, is the basis for everything. So if you're eating real food, that's the first place to start. From there, it kind of gets into a personalized thing, because we are all different, and depending on your genetics, maybe where your your heritage is from, things like that is going to influence how different foods make you feel. I generally tell people to start with a more balanced plate. You know, don't eliminate any food groups or anything like that. That's a good place to start. And then you can make adjustments. And there's other things to consider here, okay? So there's like personal ethics. You know, if you really have a problem with eating meat and to you that seems immoral and not something you want to participate in, then that can also be a factor. There's religion, all these other factors that come into what we're eating and what we decide to do. Paleo, I generally don't have a problem with that because it is real food. The only thing that I would be concerned with is if you're unnecessarily eliminating foods. So some people have problems with gluten, some people have problems with grains, they have digestive stuff going on. That's totally valid, but that's not every single person on planet Earth, right? So it all comes down to that personalization. Generally, I'm not a fan of anything that eliminates a lot of stuff, and I do think that animal foods, when you get good quality ones, can be a really important part of a healthy diet. But then again, that all comes down to your personal choice in the end and what feels really good for you. Okay. Is eating fruit at night bad? Oranges, banana, or something else? What time should the last meal be? The only thing about night eating, like a lot of diets try to eliminate nighttime eating. The reason that they do that is because eating at night isn't bad, but if it's extra on top of your breakfast, lunch, dinner, maybe you had a snack in there, and then you're having this extra almost meal at night before you go to bed, then that's going to add in extra food that maybe you don't really need or aren't really hungry for. So that's the problem with nighttime eating. And also it can, you know, people, you might not sleep as well. Sleep's really important for your health and stuff like that. If you want a piece of fruit at night, I think that's totally fine. Go for it. You know, especially if that's going to replace something else you could be eating, like, you know, a giant ice cream sundae every night or something like that, then I say that's a good idea. The one thing I would think about, though, is why are you hungry for that fruit? Are you physically hungry for it? Do you need it? Or is it just kind of like you're bored, or you kind of want a little something, or that's your habit, or you like to have something sweet after your meal? Maybe your dinner wasn't big enough. And it'd be better to just eat a dinner that really is satisfying so you don't need that snack later. So kind of thinking about those things in your head, why you're eating the fruit, what the purpose is if you're actually hungry, all of that kind of stuff. Okay, have you looked into or heard the new study about skim milk not being good for you? That's what we drink. I haven't heard about that. Definitely send that to me. I'd like to check it out. There has been a lot of research over the past few years as far as the benefits of dairy fat. And looking at that, and also this talk around saturated fat and unsaturated fat and that whole thing that's still a big talking point right now. So I don't know exactly what that study is talking about as far as skim milk not being good for you. Personally, I don't drink skim milk. I can tell you that. We get milk from a regional dairy from grass-fed cows. It's just whole milk. But we don't, that's what we do. So I don't think skim milk is bad for you. But it all depends. I don't think whole milk is bad for you either, and it's all individual, if that makes sense. But I'd be interested to know more about that study and what exactly it was talking about, because that's kind of interesting. Okay, next one. Are there any prepackaged microwavable meals that are reasonable options? Okay, this is a good one. So if you aren't cooking a lot and you're just trying to switch your food to something better, there are better brands out there, especially if your store has like a natural or organic section, or you're fortunate enough to live near like a Trader Joe's or a Whole Foods. There are definitely brands out there. There's a lot of ones out there. Amy's is the one that comes to mind just to start off the top. I personally don't shop in that section a lot, so I don't necessarily know all the brands. But again, it just comes down to reading the ingredients and seeing if it's something that you're comfortable with. The other thing to think about is some of the kind of shortcut things in the grocery store. So it is a little more expensive, but you can buy, pre-cut things or pre-chopped veggies, things like that. So that can make it a little easier too, if you want to go that route. And also doing just some really simple meals that don't even require a lot of cooking. Canned fish is a great option, canned tuna. And then all you need is like some lettuce, put some dressing on there, done. You have a meal. So those are some options to think about if you're not a great cook or that's something you're working on. Okay, how do I feel about dairy, healthy, low fat versus fat? Oh, okay, well that's kind of in the same vein of what we talked about earlier. What about saturated fat and cholesterol? Okay, dairy, I'm totally cool with dairy. I don't have a problem with it, but it's also not something that everyone needs. There are plenty of cultures where they don't have dairy, and that's fine too. And if you're lactose intolerant, then obviously your body isn't dealing with that too well. So my stance on dairy is it can be a great food, especially if you're getting it from grass-fed cows, really good quality stuff. But it's also not something that like every single person has to have to be healthy, because there's plenty of cultures where they don't have it and they're perfectly healthy. Saturated fat and cholesterol. It's definitely a hot topic right now. Personally, I don't have a problem with saturated fat. I think it can definitely be part of a healthy diet, and it's found in a lot of really healthy foods. With that said, I would go for the pastured animal products, animals that are raised well, because that does change the fat composition, that does change the health of the animal, the health of the fat, all that kind of stuff. So that does make a difference. Cholesterol, currently our understanding of cholesterol is that it doesn't have a big impact on your blood cholesterol. So the cholesterol you eat doesn't really impact your blood cholesterol. At least that's the thinking right now, except maybe for people who have genetic predisposition, things like that. So it's not the biggest deal. But there's a whole other things that go into that. So you want to be eating a diet that's high in fiber, lots of fruits and vegetables, because that does trap some of the cholesterol and pull it through your system so it doesn't end up getting absorbed. Cholesterol is necessary. It's an important part of our body. Our body is able to make it, but it's not like an evil thing either. And that obviously that's something too, if you have a specific thing going on, as I said in the beginning, this isn't meant to treat or diagnose or cure anything. The information here, it's just general info. So if you have a specific concern, make sure you're talking to your doctor about it and figuring out something that's going to work for you. Okay, going back to the cheese, what's a good amount of cheese? Have cheese once a day. So a good amount of cheese, if you want to think of cheese as like die, like rolling, like you play Monopoly or something, you roll the die. You could have like a few pieces that size, like maybe 4 or something. That's kind of a good measure. Sometimes you might have more than that. The big thing is you don't want to be eating like, if you're eating like a half a block of cheese, that's probably a lot. But just like a few slices or a few pieces or a sprinkling in a salad or something like that, that's a good amount to go with. And to balance it, yeah, just make sure that you're eating a good amount of that, like I just talked about, and then also just all the other foods that you want to eat, and so that kind of balances it out. Okay, we got a question. What's paleo? Paleo is a diet. The idea is that you eliminate all grains, all legumes, so beans, lentils, stuff like that, and all dairy. And the idea is that these are foods from modern agriculture, and we're not well adapted to eat those foods, so we cut them out. The thing with it is a lot of people get benefit from that if they have digestive stuff going on, or they have an allergy or intolerance, celiac disease, all this kind of stuff. But I don't think that it's something that's like necessary for every human on the planet, because we don't all have those kinds of things going on. What do you think about milk alternatives, soy, almond, cashew? With milk alternatives, one thing, it goes back to quality. So there are definitely ones that are better than others. If you look at the label and there's a lot of sweeteners or additives or stabilizers, stuff like that, then it's probably a not so good brand. The best is to make it yourself, which is a pretty easy thing to do. You do need a higher powered blender to do that. So like with nut milks, almond milk, cashew milk, you can make that. And the other thing is like try to get ones that have the least amount of stabilizer. So most of them are going to have some sort of stabilizer or something to keep it thick and mix together and keep the fat from separating from the water and stuff like that. And if you don't have a problem with those, it's probably not that big of a deal, like in the grand scheme of things, right? It's not an issue. Soy milk, I generally don't recommend, just because there are still talks about the estrogenic effect of it. So some things in soy can act like estrogen, and some people say that's awesome because it blocks estrogen, and then other people say it's a bad thing because it just acts like the estrogen. So I'm more of a fan generally of nut milks. And also with soy, it is a real whole food, but it's something that in the cultures that traditionally eat soy, a lot of time they have it fermented. So like tempeh or soy sauce or something like that. They're not just eating all these large quantities of soy like we tend to do over here in the West. So something to think about. What are the marketing secrets they put on packages to trick us into thinking something is healthy when it really isn't? Okay. So I think the big thing is these like buzzwords. So like gluten-free, that's a big one right now. Everything, if it did have gluten or didn't have gluten or whatever, the broccoli's gluten-free. You know what I mean? Like it's gotten a little ridiculous. And some of that stuff is necessary for people who have celiac disease, who have an actual allergy, and this is like a serious issue for them. But just because something is gluten-free doesn't mean it's healthier for the general population. So a lot of those buzzwords, organic is another one. Just because something is organic doesn't mean it's healthy. Organic cookies are still cookies. They're made with better ingredients, which I think is awesome. I don't think we need unnecessary extra junky stuff in there, but it's still a cookie. Okay, so stuff like that. Excuse me. I think the other thing is a lot of times on packaging, they put kind of like this pastoral, like the barn with the cows or like the golden fields or some, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like this image of like this fantasy world. And somehow that makes us think that it's healthier. And I don't know why. It's just something that we kind of associate together, but it's not necessarily related. And the big thing is too, the less packaged stuff you're buying, then the less you have to kind of weed through all of that stuff. So buzzwords like gluten-free, organic, natural, all of those things, you still got to flip it over, read the ingredients, and see what's actually in it, and also a lot of images that kind of conjure up these warm and fuzzy feelings. Vixie says she can never cut out cheese, and I know a lot of people who would agree with that. I'm not a big cheese eater, but I do like it from time to time. Okay, what is my opinion on sweeteners like stevia? Okay, I did recently make a video about this, about Zing, which is a stevia-based sweetener. So you can go there if you want to see more of my thoughts on that. But real quickly, I think stevia is fine, like the plant, go for it. the more we process it down, the more murky it gets. So the next step from that would maybe be like dried stevia, kind of like you buy dried oregano or dried rosemary. That's good too, whatever, go for it. Next step is the stevia like extract with the dropper, really concentrated, probably still okay, not a big deal. And then you get to the granulated sweeteners, which can't be pure stevia because you can't turn the green leafiness into the granulatedness. So there's more fillers and stuff like that going on in there. So as you take those steps away from the whole plant, I'm less and less of a fan of it. So if you're using the plant, if you like it, I think it's fine. But also make sure you go check out that video because I do talk a lot about that in more detail. And I think it is a pretty good one, if I do say so myself. Can't do paleo. I know a lot of people agree with that, and I would be in that camp as well. Well, I could do it, but I would prefer not to. I find milk alternatives too sweet. Don't like it. Yeah, a lot of them have a lot of sugar in them or like sweeteners. You can find ones that don't, but you got to be careful because they sneak that stuff in there and you're not paying attention. You don't realize. What can I do to stop myself from overeating? I actually have a video about this. If you want to go check it out, it is called Why Am I Hungry All the Time, or Why Am I Always Hungry, or something like that. So that is a good one for that topic. And then the other one, I have one about anxiety and overeating because of that. So it might not be directly related for you, but it has a lot of the same information. But the shorter version, that's not like a 12-minute video or whatever, it depends on why you're overeating, because there's lots of reasons why we overeat. Are you overeating because you still feel hungry? Are you overeating because you're eating too quickly? Are you overeating because you're bored, or you're sad, or you're happy? Or, you know, what is the reason behind it? What's the motivation? Because that's going to make a difference. If it's an emotional thing, then you got to tackle it way different than if it's, you know, more of the actual physical, the food, the hunger, that kind of thing. Also, sleep and stress can affect it. So if you're not getting enough sleep, you tend to feel more hungry because your hormones get out of whack. And if you're stressed out, some people don't eat when they're stressed out at all, and some people overeat. So looking at that root cause and going from there. Something that can help on the physical side and on the mental, emotional, is being more mindful when you eat. Make sure that you don't have a bunch of distractions as much as possible. You know, you don't want to be eating in your car if you can help it. You don't want to be on your phone, watching television, all that kind of stuff, watching YouTube, even though, you know, if you want to watch my videos, I kind of want that, but not when you're eating, because it distracts you, and then you're not paying attention to your food. And what happens is you're not really paying attention to your hunger and your fullness, so you can get in that situation like when you end up with your hand at the bottom of the bag of chips and you don't know how you got there because you weren't paying attention to your hunger. And the other thing is a lot of times we overeat because we're not really enjoying the food. So if you can really pay attention to the smells and the flavors and textures and the sensations and all that, then a lot of times you are satisfied with less food because you don't have to keep going back to try to get that experience again because you're paying attention to it. Whereas when you're not paying attention, you never really get to taste it and get that satisfaction. So those are some things to think about. And if you have any more questions on that or anything else, definitely put it in the chat and we can do kind of like a little follow-up as I go through the questions. Okay. Yeah, exactly. Says all those gluten-free, fat-free, organic, whatever. You got to check the ingredients. That's for sure. Thanks for the shout out, Vixie, on that video. A lot of people seem to like that one. It's one of my most popular ones, and I think it's something that I definitely have struggled with in the past. So it's a really good one. Oh, I see one at the bottom here. You skipped my question. Biggest struggle is drinking water. Oh. Sorry. Oh, I see it right there. I missed it. Yeah, if I skip your question, definitely write it again because I might just miss it as I'm scanning through everything, or I scroll, I might miss it. Okay, so I'll do this one next. Biggest struggle is drinking water. What can I do? Okay. It depends on why you struggle with it, whether it's you don't like the taste of it or if you just have trouble remembering. If you don't like the taste, big thing you can do is add in some fruit. So like I have grapefruit here in my water. You can add sliced orange, lemons, limes. You can do berries, mint, all kinds of stuff. to kind of amp up the flavor a little bit naturally. And that way you also get some variety because you can change out the different add-ins, which is really fun. The other thing to think about if you're having trouble remembering is having some sort of water bottle with you so that visually you get that reminder. You can also try like setting some sort of alarm like on your phone, or if you're at work on a computer, like just like how people have those reminders like, you've been sitting down for an hour, you need to get up on their computers at work. You can do the same sort of thing with water, just like a little thing that pops up or reminds you like, have you had any water? If you find that you get distracted and you forget about it. Another cool thing you can try is this app. It's called Plant Nanny, and it kind of makes drinking water into a game. So you have a little plant that you grow from a seed on the app, and as you drink water, it waters the plant. And if you don't drink enough water, then the plant can die. And as you drink your water, the plant grows and gets to different stages. And then when it's done, it goes in your garden, and then you can plant more plants. So it kind of makes it a little fun and gives you a little activity. And it's also a little emotional because you don't want to see your cute little plant get all sad and wilty. So that's a fun one too if you that can help you track it and really pay attention to what you're doing there. So those are some ideas for the water thing. Okay. Jana likes the 5-ingredient limit when reading a label from the 100 Days of Real Food link. Sounds like easier to figure out. Yeah, that's a good idea. Just like 5 ingredients. If it has more than that, it's probably getting a little crazy. You know, that's not a hard and fast rule. There's plenty of good things that might have more than that, but it's a good guideline to go by because that's generally the way things fall out. So a good thing to think about. Also, if it has more than 4 syllables, yeah, that could be a good one too. Okay, so I have one more question here, and we've still got a little bit of time. So if you have other questions, put them in the chat, and I'll just keep going through them as we go. And if you need any help with your goal, let me know about that too, and we can figure it out together. Okay, can you take us through what you eat on a typical day? Let me get some water first before I lose my voice. Okay, so what I eat on a typical day. I do have a video about this on my channel. It's pretty recent. So what I eat in a day. That one I would say is pretty typical. So if you want to go watch that, you can really see how everything goes. But for me, breakfast is, I have a few different options. It's either plain yogurt with some sort of fruit, and I switch that up as the seasons go around. So in the fall and winter, I'm having like apples and pears and pomegranates. And then in the spring and summer, I'm having more like berries and peaches and nectarines and stuff like that. So it's, and also cinnamon in there, especially if you're doing apples. It's kind of like apple pie, but yogurt is really good. So that's a breakfast I do. Another breakfast I do would be like eggs with, a thing I've been doing right now is kind of making like this little egg pancake. So I just scramble up the eggs and cook them all together. And then I just flip it over so it cooks on both sides. And it's like a little circle. So kind of like an omelet, but not folded in half. And I'll put hot sauce on that and salsa and like some sort of like spring salad mix type of thing. So I'll do that, and I might have a piece of fruit with that. I also do sometimes peanut butter banana toast. So 2 pieces of toast, excuse me, 2 pieces of toast with peanut butter on there and then sliced banana. I don't do that one as often because it seems for me to be like a lot of carbohydrate or a lot of sugar first thing in the morning. It usually feels like a little too much, or like too much sweetness. So I don't do that one a lot, but sometimes I do it because that is quick and easy. So those are kind of my 3 go-to breakfasts. Another one I do sometimes when I make it is my almond joy granola. That recipe is on my YouTube channel if you want to look for that one. That with a little bit of milk, that can be a good one too. And then lunch is usually leftovers from dinner. So I'm a big believer in leftovers. So I make, it's just me and my husband, but when I cook dinner, I usually make enough for 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 servings. So that way we can both have it for our lunches to pack. And then lunch isn't something that I have to plan or figure out. And then dinner is a lot of times eggs with potatoes and some sort of green. That I do a lot. Also some like sort of ground meat with the vegetables. So something I've been doing right now is I chop up a head of cabbage. I have onion and garlic and like ground beef or ground lamb and some spices. It's just kind of this big bowl of like a lot of vegetables with some meat in there. So that's something I do a lot. Sometimes I roast a chicken and I do roasted vegetables with that. Sometimes if it's really easy night, do some salad with just like a can of tuna, some chopped apple or strawberries or something, depending on what season it is, whip up a little dressing, just some oil and vinegar real quick, mixed together. Those are kind of my standard go-tos. And I do have a lot of pictures of my meals on my Instagram as well. So if you kind of want to see some other ideas of things that I have, then you can look there too. And that's linked in the description of the video, just to give you some more ideas. Okay, what do you think about meal replacement shakes? How long can you do them? Meal replacement shakes, I'm generally not a fan of anything that isn't a long-term solution. So unless you're going to drink a meal replacement shake for that meal for the rest of your life, then I don't think that's a good idea, because we want to be building habits that are going to last. Because otherwise, if you're doing something that's temporary, then when it's over, you just go back to what you're doing before and you don't really make any lasting change. The other thing with meal replacement shakes is a lot of times there's like some junky stuff going in there. Usually they're highly processed, or at least fairly processed foods, and I'd much rather you have like some good real whole foods for your meal. And also, you can make shakes yourself. You can do like a smoothie or whatever. But still, for me, I think it's way more satisfying to actually chew and eat your food than to drink it. It triggers your hunger cues better, and it's just a better experience, I think, personally. Most times, I would prefer to eat my food than to drink it. And I see a question here about smoothies. Smoothies, I'm okay with, but again, I think eating the food is just generally more satisfying. And a lot of times when you drink a lot more than you would have actually ate. So then you have like an overeating thing going on. So I think it's better to try to build meals that you could eat forever, not something that's temporary, just because it's not going to help you create that lasting change that you really want, that's going to stick with you moving forward. Okay, really quick breakfast that will fill you up. Eggs is a great one. Really quick and easy to cook. If you like hard-boiled eggs, then you can even prep those ahead of time and have them peeled and everything ready to go. I like that. I do like the peanut butter banana toast, very filling. Also, peanut butter with some fruit, or almond butter with some fruit if you're, need something quick. That's good to have. I love the yogurt one with some fruit and some nuts. That's something I do a lot. But eggs, if you have trouble feeling full in the morning, I say eggs, because that protein and the fat in the morning will help you feel full and keep you going until lunchtime. And it's always something to play with. Pay attention to how your meals affect you. If you get hungry, if you don't get hungry, kind of take note and then make adjustments from there. And another thing you can do is overnight oats. That's really easy. It's just like, there's lots of recipes online. If you go on Pinterest, I'm sure there's a ton. You just take the oats and you like soak them overnight, and then they're ready to go in the morning, so you don't even have to make it. So that's kind of like a prep ahead kind of thing. Okay, this is really fun. You guys have great questions. I'm really having a good time. I hope you're having a good time. Okay, next one. Is it better to drink water before, after, or during eating? If you're having trouble drinking water, I would say first thing is just plain drinking it. Anytime is good. But if you're really trying to time it, a lot of people don't like, drinking a lot of water right before you eat or while you're eating, because it can, kind of dilute what's going on in your stomach acid. So if you have digestive problems, or you feel like you're not digesting your food well, that might be something to look at. Honestly, I don't go by that too much. I feel like that's kind of a tweak. If you're having a problem or you really want to tweak it, then you can go for it. But for me personally, I was trying to do that one time. Like, okay, well, let me try not drinking around meal times and see what happens if I notice a difference. What just happened was I didn't drink enough water. I'd get to the end of the day, I'm like, I'm drinking any water, because a lot of times you think of it when the meal comes. It's like, oh, I would also like something to drink right now. So, ultimately, I don't think it makes that big of a deal. But if you are feeling like you're not digesting your food well or something like that, then it can be something to play with if you want to. But if it means you're not going to drink water, then I say just drink it whenever. Okay, and I need more water too, because I'm talking a lot. Okay, is it ideal to have a good number of your carbs during breakfast, or is it better to spread them out evenly throughout the day? This is definitely a very nuanced thing. So I'd say generally for most people, don't worry about it too much. A lot of people do like to have less carbs during breakfast and more during the evening, because a lot of times people find that they don't do as well, just as much carb in the morning. It doesn't seem like they're digesting it, or it's not making, same like with me with the peanut butter banana toast thing. It just feels like too much a lot of times, like all at once. A lot of people do better with more protein and fat and maybe pushing their carbs later in the day. So I would say look at that. But as far as, it depends on what your goals are, but overall, whatever makes you feel good, if eating them a certain way makes you feel better, you feel like you're digesting better, your energy's better, whatever, then go for it. But if you're just trying to eat more real food, then I would say that's definitely like a more advanced thing to worry about, and it probably doesn't ultimately make that big of a deal. Ooh, what about spices on eggs? I'm all about the spices. If you have spices that you want to put in stuff, go for it. As long as, you're not cooking for someone else and they hate everything that you put in there, then you might have a problem. But I just tend to go with good old salt and pepper and then put some hot sauce on my eggs. But I mean, you can really do anything if you like, kind of want to do Tex-Mexy type flavors or whatever. That could be good. So you try that. I think you could go for it. Okay, next question. How do you feel about drinking coffee daily? I've read that it negatively affects blood sugar regulation, cortisol levels, vitamin and mineral absorption. I struggle with giving it up though. Okay, coffee is one of those things, well, as with everything, it depends, right? It depends on you. It depends on a few things. First off, if you feel like you need coffee every day to wake you up, or to give you the energy you need, then I'd say it's definitely something to look at, because either one, you're not getting enough sleep, or two, you're just dependent on the coffee for that kind of boost in your energy. And that's never a good thing. You never want to be like, you can't function as a person unless you have your coffee. Other thing is if you get headaches, like if you skip a day of your coffee, say, and your head hurts, then I would definitely look at reducing it, just because that means that you're having a little bit of issue with it. Like, that's me, okay? So if I drink coffee every single day consistently, then if I miss a day, I'm going to have a headache and I'm just going to be miserable, and I don't want to be in that situation. So for me, I try to moderate it more. I have it maybe 1 to 3 times a week, and it's something that I'm aware of, if I've had it a lot in a certain week, just because I don't want to have that whole headache thing happen, because it's just miserable. Jason, my husband, on the other hand, he doesn't seem to have as much problem with it. He doesn't get headaches and stuff, though that is what he's working on for his goal for the challenge, because he's doing it too, interestingly enough. And he's, what are you trying to do? 5 days a week instead of 7? Is that what it is? Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, so instead of 7 days a week, he's trying to do 5. So, reduce it a little bit. As far as with coffee, there's a lot of positives to it. There's always research coming out about how it helps with this or it helps with that. I mean, it does have a lot of antioxidants and stuff in it. It's a real food. I think it's totally fine. But you don't want to be doing a lot of it, okay? And you don't want to be dependent on it. Those are the two things. If those are happening, then I would say something to take a look at. And if you're having trouble giving it up, there's a few things you can try. It depends on why. I see you're seeing here, you get the headache. Yeah, I know that pain. That's not good. So you could try switching to something that's a little lower caffeine. Try to wean yourself down if you want. So like black tea or green tea or something like that can be good. The other thing, you can just stop if you want and just say, I'm only going to have it twice a week, and cut yourself off. That might be a little rough in the beginning, but it gets you to the point a little more quickly. So if you're the kind of person that you feel like maybe you could do that, or maybe work up to that throughout the challenge. So maybe you want to even for your goal, have a little bit of step up. So the first week you only have it 5 days, and then 4, and then 2, or something like that. You could do that. I have in the past gone on a little bit of a caffeine detox, where I realize I'm having coffee every day, or I'm having even tea every day, and now I get a headache, and I just say, we're cutting this, and just kind of push through, especially if you do that on a weekend where you don't have to see people, kind of push through that initial struggle and then go on from there. So those are some things that you can try. I'm seeing that it's 10 o'clock, and I know at least for me on the East Coast, it's 10 o'clock here. So I'll do a couple more questions that are in the chat, and then we will go ahead and wrap stuff up. Okay, I'll try to finish these out. And if you have any other questions that I don't get to, you can always, you know, send them to me on Instagram in a comment or a message. You can always tweet them to me, whatever, Facebook message, anything like that. And you can even submit them as a request for a video. If it's something you want me to make a video about on my channel, you can do that too. So just keep that in mind if I don't get to your question. Okay, I buy vegetables and fruits at the supermarket. Are these fine, or should I consider buying them at the farmer's market? I'm a big fan of the farmer's market for a few reasons. One, if it's a true farmer's market where it's farms from your local area, it's probably going to be a lot fresher, so it's going to taste better, and it's going to be a little bit higher in nutrients. I also love farmer's markets because a lot of times you have more options. There's all these cool, you know, different variety of things that you're just not going to get at the grocery store, and that makes your meals a little more interesting, gives you some more flavors, textures, all that kind of fun stuff. And also the great thing about farmers markets is you get that community, you get to interact with the person who's growing your food. So I love it for all of that. But if, you know, the stuff at the grocery store is fine. I do a mix. I try to go local as much as possible, supplement with a little stuff at the grocery store. So I'm a huge fan of farmers markets, but that's not to say the fruits and vegetables at the grocery store aren't good quality. Raw food diet. I am personally not a proponent of a raw foods diet. I do see, just anecdotally, a lot of people talk about their good experience, how they had health problems, they overcame it, and I definitely can't speak against anyone's experience in that way. I think a lot of times for those people, it's because, you know, they're getting this huge infusion of all of these fruits and vegetables, nutrients, minerals, phytochemicals, the fiber, all that stuff. So it's really having almost a medicinal effect. That's kind of just my idea of maybe why it helps them. But anything that really limits your food selection, I'm not a huge fan of for the most part. And cooking your food is not a bad thing. There's pros and cons to cooking your food. Certain nutrients you can absorb better when you cook them, like the lycopene in tomatoes. It's more absorbable after it's been heated and cooked. So I think cooking your food is not something that we need to avoid. And we've got someone who makes coffee. Coffee makes them sleepy. That's interesting. It definitely doesn't make me sleepy. Foods to help with concentration. Well, coffee is one. It can help you focus, but you don't want to be dependent on that. I think for concentration, the biggest thing is just overall eating well and getting enough sleep. I don't know if there's one food, you know, getting healthy fats because those are good for your brain and stuff like that. So like nuts and seeds and salmon and stuff like that. But as far as concentration, just overall good quality and get your sleep and reduce your stress. And all those three things are kind of the trifecta on that one. Oh, Vixie has a good thing, the tea alternative. I never know how to say that. I have some, but I don't know how to say it. Pure, I don't know. But it's kind of interesting. It's good. So you should try that. It's kind of fun. Okay, so that is it for the live stream. Thanks, you guys, for coming out and hanging out with me. It was super fun. I really enjoyed answering all of your questions. If you're not signed up for the challenge, definitely sign up and join us. It's going to be a lot of fun. And make sure if you're signed up, you're checking your email because I will be emailing you periodically. And also go follow me on Instagram because that's a place where you can get more frequent contact with me, and we can hang out a lot there. And that's where I'm doing most of my day-to-day communication with you about the challenge, and sharing what I'm eating and things like that. This has been a lot of fun. I really enjoyed talking to all of you guys, and good luck tomorrow with the first day of the challenge. And if you have any questions, anything else, just let me know and we will get that figured out for you. Okay, guys, have a great night and I will talk to you later.